All right, let's get right into it. Today we're talking about the story of Fred Hampton, a revolutionary leader whose truth, some say, has been intentionally buried. We're going to be looking at his life through the incredibly powerful perspective of the book, Unapologetic Street Sermon.
Our source kicks things off with this quote, and honestly, it says it all. This wasn't about small changes or reforms. This was about a total revolution. We're not just exploring the story of a man, but an idea so powerful that the state had him assassinated when he was just 21 years old. Now, before we really dive into Hampton's life, it's super important to understand the unique voice that's telling this story. Because in this case, the perspective is everything.
So, our guide here is a writer who goes by Yellow Boy. He writes from what he calls an in-between space. You see, he grew up white in a black neighborhood, and he's all about breaking down the lies he was told about race, about class, and especially about the legacy of Fred Hampton.
So, what exactly is that lie? Well, Yellow Boy argues that the story most of us have heard, that Hampton was just another angry, violent militant, is a complete fabrication. It's a narrative that was carefully crafted by the very people who feared him the most, and it was designed to hide the real reason he was such a threat.
Okay, so if he wasn't just a militant, what was it about Fred Hampton that made him so dangerous to the establishment? The answer might actually surprise you.
And here it is. This is the absolute heart of the story. The thing that put a target on Hampton's back wasn't his anger. It was his incredible, almost unbelievable ability to bring poor and oppressed people together across all racial lines.
I mean, just look at this. He created the original Rainbow Coalition. Now think about how insane that was for the time. He brought together black revolutionaries, Puerto Rican revolutionaries, and a group of poor white kids from Appalachia, the very people the system was built to keep at each other's throats. People thought this was impossible.
But the how he did it is what's really mind-blowing. He didn't walk into a room with the young patriots and start condemning them for flying the Confederate flag. No. Instead, he looked right past that symbol and he saw the person. He found common ground in the fact that they were all poor and getting screwed over by the same system. He showed them their real enemy wasn't each other.
And this was his message, plain and simple. Unity was the weapon. He kept saying that the struggle wasn't just about race, it was about class. It was about poor people, black, white, brown, realizing they were all in the same boat and their only chance was to unite.
But here's the thing. This wasn't just a bunch of talk and fiery speeches. This is where the story gets really incredible. Hampton and the Panthers put these ideas into practice every single day by serving the people directly. They started the legendary Free Breakfast for Children program, and the logic was so simple but so revolutionary. A child can't learn anything on an empty stomach, and a revolution can't be fought by a hungry people. This wasn't charity, it was about building power from the ground up.
They also set up free medical clinics. In neighborhoods that the system had completely given up on, the Panthers were there with volunteer doctors and nurses, providing essential care, literally saving lives. They were building a whole parallel system.
And then they ran liberation schools. They were teaching kids their true history, the stuff that was conveniently erased from the official textbooks. This was about freeing minds, not just filling stomachs.
And the list just goes on and on. Free ambulances when the cities wouldn't show up, free legal aid, even pest control. Every single one of these programs was an act of self-determination. It was them proving that the community could take care of itself and do it way better than the state ever could.
So you have to ask yourself, why would a 21-year-old leader who was so focused on feeding kids and building unity need to be eliminated? Well, the answer is frankly terrifying. Because the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, he looked at all this success, all this community care, and he didn't see a good thing. He saw his absolute worst nightmare. A united front of poor people led by a charismatic and effective black leader, that was a threat that he believed had to be neutralized at all costs.
And the tool they used to do it was called COINTELPRO. Now, let's be clear. This was not about law enforcement. This was a secret, illegal war that the U.S. government waged against its own citizens. The entire goal was to destroy movements like the Black Panther Party from the inside out. And this is how they went after Hampton. A paid FBI informant, a man named William O'Neill, had worked his way up to be Hampton's chief of security. O'Neill gave the FBI a detailed floor plan of the apartment. On the night of December 3rd, he drugged Hampton. And then, at 4:45 in the morning, a police tactical unit stormed the apartment and murdered him in his sleep.
Now, the police claimed there was this fierce gun battle. But the evidence told a completely different story.
During that raid, police fired over 90 shots into that apartment.
Over 90 shots from the police. And the Panthers inside? They fired only one. A single shot, probably just a reflexive action as the raid started. The official story of a shootout just completely fell apart. This wasn't a gunfight. This was a state-sanctioned execution.
So the state silenced the man. They murdered a 21-year-old in his bed. But they fundamentally misunderstood something huge.
Because just like Fred Hampton himself said, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. His assassination didn't crush the movement. It just exposed the brutal, violent lengths the state would go to protect its power. And his legacy of unity and service, it became a rallying cry that inspires movements to this very day.
And that brings us to the final, really provocative question our source leaves us with. It's a challenge to every single one of us. In a world that feels more divided than ever, Hampton's story proves that solidarity is possible, even in the most unlikely places. It asks us to look past the symbols that divide us and find our common struggle. So if he could build those bridges back then, what's our excuse now?